Welcome to the 26th meeting of the Milton Planning Board. I am Emily Ennis and
Alex Whiteside.
Bernie Lynch, member.
Ed Duffy, member. Peter Jackson, member.
Diane Colligan, secretary.
thank you very much. I should note for all present that this is being broadcast and taped. Also, tonight's meeting will be broadcasted only until 7:45 p.m. At that time, the live transmission will stop and the Board of Selectmen meeting will begin live at 8 p.m. Planning Board meeting will be shown in its entirety all weekend long, at 10 p.m. and Monday morning at 10 a.m. Thank you. Okay, first item on the agenda, approval of past minutes, and we have June 9th in front of us.
I haven't, I've just seen these
Okay.
2 minutes ago, and I'm not prepared to approve them. Yeah.
All right. Everybody willing to defer to our next meeting?
Yes, sure.
Okay, great. Speaking of which, our next meeting is July 14th and July 28th, both at 6:30 p.m., and we do not yet have a location for those.
But we're hoping not to be in this basement.
It's a lovely basement, but yes, that's correct. We are hoping to be elsewhere. Possibly the upstairs conference room or possibly the Council on Aging, depending on the agenda. Okay, next item on our agenda is citizen speak. Do we have any citizens who wish to speak? Noting that we do have a public hearing scheduled for 6:40 p.m. tonight on 131 Elliott Street. Welcome, please introduce yourself.
Margaret Donovan, 41 Central Avenue, and I do intend to speak at the public hearing relative to 131 Elliott Street. But I would also like to speak on the issue of where you hold the meetings and how you hold the meetings. And I do appreciate the fact that you have taken them out of that closet upstairs known as the Cronin, the Selectman's office. The Council on Aging has actually been the best site. I do understand you're not going to hold a meeting there when you have one person in the audience. But I would like to point out the difficulty of hearing what is being said at this meeting, because the back is to the audience, the person is speaking here. So you're listening, viewers get to hear what's being said because of the television transmission. The planning board gets to hear what's being said by the speakers. But some of us in the audience do not, because again, the speakers have they're facing you with their backs to me. Now, it could be that after 8 years of attending these meetings that maybe I've become deaf, but I don't think that's the reason. I do know that one person I can barely hear. He's not here tonight. He probably won't be here from now on because that whole issue with 36 Central has been resolved. But Mr. Sullivan, when Mr. Sullivan would come here to speak to you, I had great difficulty understanding or even hearing what he said because he was talking to the table. And I'm sure he didn't want me to hear what he had to say anyway. But again, I'm just pointing out that sometimes it's very difficult to hear because of that.
Can I make a comment?
Yes, of course.
MPEG just went out and spent a fortune, Michael did, and bought a system so that, see, this is not, our responsibility is not to wire these meeting rooms, it's the town. But we went out and spent our money, and Mike has this great system that I think he's already used it at the Council of Aging. And so we'll put it in here, it's a portable system.
At the Council of Aging, you had the speakers at one side, and so the audience could look at the speakers as they were speaking, which is different from here. And that's the point that I'm making.
Well,
And
without
again-
amplification, we probably should put the person on the side so that a little bit of what they say carries back. Did everyone back there hear what was said just now?
I think Margaret's used to projecting her voice,
Well,
which is
I
helpful.
have-
Not everybody is.
I have a school teacher's voice, so.
Use that attorney's voice.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We, of course, don't sit back there and don't get a chance to hear what you're hearing, so I appreciate you letting us know that you can't hear. All right, our
And
public,
people who can't hear should make it known that they can't hear.
yes, actually, that would be helpful, and then we can ask the person to speak up.
That's right.
All right, so our public hearing isn't until 6:40, so I'll ask the town planner to give his report. If you have a report for us.
Sure.
Good.
Between the dealing with the different lawyers for the Beechwood Estates, some of the legal issues dealing with the wind turbine, the new site plan for the wind turbine. That's it, no paperwork.
How's the arbitration law? Who's going to arbitrate it?
That would be Mr. Flynn's department,
I see.
and where it goes to what arbitrator, I do not know.
But there's probably the American Arbitration
AAA.
Association.
Yeah. But what arbitrator is going to be assigned, I don't
Right,
know that we've written
exactly.
down.
But that is probably a good thing, to get a basically trial now rather than 3 years from now.
Yes.
Yep,
Nothing else?
nothing.
All right. Fortunately, I've got something, which is I went to the Great Neighborhood Summit today, and actually Pete was there as well, although we didn't really see each other, except in passing. It was very, very interesting. And Pete can chime in, it was put on by the Massachusetts Smart Growth Alliance. They're working with 5 separate towns, Lawrence, Somerville, Winchester, Roxbury, and the Fairmount Corridor, which includes Dorchester, Mattapan, and Hyde Park. Thank you. And the program started last year. It was kicked off last year, but they're actually funding the implementation of it this year. And especially with the Fairmount Corridor being relatively close to us, we had to keep an eye on it. But we also ought to keep an eye on what they're doing there. The idea is that rather than just looking at projects on a very local basis, they are looking at projects as to how they fit into the entire region. And a lot of this has been done with South Coast Rail, where that whole area is actually affecting 31 separate communities. So the idea is, yes, you should definitely look at what's going on in your community and the projects that come before you, but you need to consider them in the larger context of the entire region. It's very interesting, and what I'll do is, I've only had a chance, obviously, I went to the conference, went to work, came here, but I will get photocopies of all the materials for you, and you can review it. Peter, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add?
I guess the only thing I'd add is the keynote speaker was Fred Kent, who was I guess he's called president or whatever he is.
President, yeah.
Yeah, of the People for, Public
You had to
Spaces.
ask.
People for Public Spaces.
Well, it's something like that.
No,
It's
something like that. Where'd he go?
Partnership.
Project for Public
Project for Public
Spaces.
Spaces.
Yes.
Who has been around for about 30 years, and they consult with all kinds of groups on making public places work better for people. And I think, he had a lot to say about streetscapes and projects and how, you really kind of have to start with, instead of starting with design, you start with the people and develop kind of a program for people on a space, and then work on a design that works for that. And I thought that was, he showed a lot of good examples and very relevant to the work that we're doing.
He had some very interesting ideas. So we'll get the links to you and the information and see where we go from there.
I have a question for the town planner. On the brownfield PUD development, as you know, we passed the zoning was passed, and I remember they're saying that if there was affordable housing, it wasn't going to make it feasible, and there was affordable housing, and as I understand it, nothing is happening. Do you think we can trace down the principles and ask, get an update?
We can. I do know that there were several different issues out there, and access was more of an issue than the affordable housing issue.
The DCR land.
Well, they have
Across the tracks.
it had to do with the tracks. It wasn't, they have a easement that goes, easement right of way across DCR land, which allows them access to their land, but it's not that wide. They have a box culvert that goes under the tracks. That is their access. Before, they had a bridge that connected the buildings on the Boston side with the buildings on the Milton side. So everything went over that bridge. And when they took the bridge down, it severed the connection between the two properties. Now, anything that comes into that site has to come in through that right-of-way. There is another access point, but the access point is for DCR to address the dam that's between the two sides of the river. That crossing point on the active rail line did not belong to the paper company. It was not there for the paper company. It's only there for DCR. And there was a supposed miscommunication in the purchase of the property, thinking that they also had rights to it.
Okay.
They are supposed to, they went to the MBTA to see if they could get access. They would be allowed for a price for specific trucks to use that, but it would only be for the trucks, whether it be moving trucks, delivery trucks, trash trucks. That's it, not for everyday cars. Everyday cars would have to use the box culvert. And the box culvert was one lane in each direction, or one lane that could be used for a two-direction passing.
Bill? We're past our time for the public hearing, so.
I'm just finishing
Yep, wrap it up, please.
Yes. I do know that there is a developer in town who is looking to talk to the owner. Where that's going, I don't know. I know that those people that presently own it tried to sell it to the state, tried, seeing if the town was interested in buying it. I think their price is ridiculous, but
So it's still
that's
in
my
limbo.
opinion. It's what?
It's in limbo at the moment.
Limbo is exactly right.
Good to know. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
All right, we have a continued public hearing on
But
one...
maybe you should still track them down.
All right.
Track away.
Okay.
We have a continued public hearing on 131 Elliott Street, and this is mostly in response to our last meeting where we had, where I brought in information from Mr. Connolly that he would like to put the project on hold while he came back to us with information. You all had some questions, so Steve is here to address them today. Welcome.
Thank you. Stephen Connolly, applicant, 131 Elliott Street. The purpose of the continuance is to redesign the exterior of the building. There's been discussion about having the traditional mansard look on the top level, and additional banding to break up the floors, and color, windows, double hung windows instead of the style that's on the building right now. So essentially a complete change in the facade of the building. Also, we want to look at what opportunity is there to push the building back off of Central Avenue and off of the train tracks. That's another issue that the board had. We have to see how that relates to parking in the back on the surface parking lot and the open space out on the Elliott Street side, but those are going to be things we're going to be looking at. And as a result of that, we'll have to change the landscape plan, see what opportunities are there to create more public amenities. So essentially, it's a we like the layout of the building inside, we like the unit layout, but we need to,
Could you speak up, please?
Steve, if you could speak up a little bit, please, or
you
turn,
can come sit next to me if you want to. It's-
or you could sit on the corner too, if the cameras can reach you. But,
So,
That doesn't help.
doesn't work.
yeah, that's only for the cameras.
So essentially, there's a number of issues which we're going to be looking at.
So just to recap, you're looking at the redesign of the building,
Right.
redesigning the location of the building on the site, and a new landscape plan.
Among
And-
other things.
Among other things. I
Right.
mean, as sort of the general key. You and I had talked this week about, when to come in and all of that. And we had discussed, the board had felt that September was a little too long to wait, so we had discussed having you come in at our last meeting in August.
Okay.
And you felt fairly comfortable with that, and obviously I'm going to check with the other board members to see how they feel about that. Anything else you want to let us know, and then I'll ask the board for questions?
My intention would be is that as we move along with this process, be well before the 30th of August, to get information to the board for feedback through Bill Clark.
Okay.
And if we have, I don't know if you can have a meeting outside of the public hearing, just to talk about where we're at with things, whatever way it has to work,
Okay.
to get comment as we move forward, so at least we have firm ground to move forward.
Okay. Any comments from board members? Pete?
Well, the last time you were before the board was on May 5th, which is 7 weeks ago. So I'm kind of wondering what you've been doing for the 7 weeks that you couldn't have had this information or at least questions back to us.
Well, what we had,
This time.
there was an impasse, Peter, and we were thinking about a number of different options. I've had Emily yesterday, I had a meeting with Emily, I think it was 2 weeks ago.
3 now.
2 or
It's
3
right
weeks
before-
ago,
Yeah,
and
right before last
They
meeting.
had a meeting with Alex, I think it was Monday or last Monday or whatever, but, and this is the track that we're going to take and try to move this thing forward, so.
That's right, you and I talked about the next steps in the plan, and I believe, as I mentioned at the last meeting of this board, that Steve had requested the chance to speak to Alex specifically about the zoning. So you've had that meeting?
We did indeed.
Okay. Maybe you can fill us in on it?
Yeah, I discussed the zoning, and it seemed to me that Steve was under certain misapprehensions about the zoning. And I think that it was a productive meeting, because one issue that they had was the 11-foot ceiling,
Right.
which is going to be, their plan is to have it on the Central Avenue basement level. And Steve thought that this meant that that all the business use area had to have an 11-foot ceiling, when in fact, if it's not on that level, it doesn't.
So we got that clarified.
So
Excellent.
So that was
It's a big thing.
Yes, it is.
Big thing.
a useful thing. I pointed out that on the step backs, I mean, I understand you want to build your building, it's hard to step back and then have something supporting the wall that's stepped back, but there's no reason you can't build sort of a exterior protrusion, two-story protrusion, maybe porches, maybe whatever,
Right.
to create the step back on the upper floors, and that was, I mean, it was hard to engineer a building with a wall supported by a ceiling. And let's see, I think that those were the
two main.
the main issues.
Do you feel that everything was clarified for you as far as the zoning? Do you have further questions?
No, I'm comfortable with the
Okay, and you're
document.
comfortable that...
But I suggested that when questions arise, there's no, we meet every 2 weeks. And that having you come in and discussing what you might like to do is one thing that you might, I gather that you're thinking about is the question of the redesigned landscape and the possibility of seeking a bonus, an FAR bonus. And I mentioned that we would have to continue the hearing we started about the tree, because we've left that in limbo.
Right.
I mean, we've decided nothing about the tree.
Well, as long as the bonus isn't requested, it's not an issue. If
Right,
the bonus
exactly.
is requested, then it
Right.
becomes an issue and we have to discuss it.
And then
Agreed.
I indicated that it would be useful to have professionals appear there to testify and to take questions. So that's a possibility also.
Okay. Any further questions from board members? Pete?
Yeah. It seems to me that it would be valuable, rather than just going away and redesigning the same building. It seemed to me that the comments on the zoning and how the building related to the site were significantly more extensive than that. And I personally don't think it would be a productive exercise just to go back and redesign the facade of the building. I think it would be a good idea to come in and start a conversation with the site and how the building fits on the site and relates to the adjacent uses. We've asked for an analysis of context. And so how the location of the building, the scale of the building, the setbacks, how the site is used before going back and redesigning, in essence, the same building. I guess that's just advice. I guess you can do what you want, but I think to make the most productive, if we're going to now delay this thing another 10 weeks, I mean, I would think that's 10 weeks in which there could be a lot of good discussion to help frame whatever the redesign is, as opposed to just coming in with a new design, or the same design, or whatever it will be.
Procedurally, obviously, we're keeping it open as a public hearing. I'm concerned that if we simply continue it to each next meeting and, it's not ready because you're working on it, clearly, and people come wanting to speak to the public hearing, they're going to be a little bit annoyed that it's on the agenda and doesn't happen. But my question is, can we continue it to whatever date, last meeting in July, last meeting in August, and still be able to have a discussion, as Mr. Connolly had suggested, out with the public hearing? I'm trying to balance the absolute necessity for the public to be able to be involved in the discussion with the fact that I don't want them to come simply to find out that we've delayed it. For example, if we put it to 2 weeks from now, I don't think that Steve's going to be able to have, and his architects will be able to have any information for us. They might have questions for us. I don't think they'll have drawings,
But
but
it's
they might
been
have
7 weeks
questions.
already, so 2 more weeks is 9 weeks.
But the question is whether or not
Okay.
from this
I just-
point to 2 weeks from now, they would be able to have something in. My worry is, will the public feel irritated if we've publicized that we're having a meeting in 2 weeks and we don't have the information? Is there a procedure whereby we can have discussions with Mr. Connolly out with the public hearing, or do we have to simply continue it to every single meeting? And if you can make it, you can make it, and if you can't, you've got a delay and some information coming in, then we have to let people know the week before. Do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, my thought is that why not do it month by month? In other words, continue it until the end of July, and then we could
Continue
continue
it.
it again at the end of
Okay.
August, and you can come in and we can find out what's happening.
Yeah, if nothing else, an update. That would work out well. And then if questions come up, you have a scheduled time, and the public has a scheduled time. Would the other members of the board feel comfortable with that? Bernie, Eddie?
No.
Pete, would you feel comfortable with that?
No. But,
Okay. Well,
for I'll carry it.
okay.
And it's, I think that it's probably as good as, and nothing's perfect.
Okay.
So
fair enough.
that should work, but it would be good to get progress and to, as you recite the building, say that, have a reason. Be able to say that you think this reciting is good because.
Understood.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ed?
Is there any advantage to starting a whole new public hearing process?
Yeah, we get a new application for you.
I think it's it.
Just to distinguish, so we're not confusing the two projects. I think perhaps in the future it might be better to start de novo.
It's essentially the same project, I believe, depending on how extensive the design are. And once we see the new design, we may have to make a determination on that. But I think my worry when Steve and I first started talking about what the next steps were is if he withdraws his application, there's less of an incentive, and this wasn't meant to be negative to you. So sometimes you withdraw an application, you get busy, things happen. There's less of an incentive to keep to a specific timeline. Whereas if we keep this particular public hearing open, especially if we do it at the end of every month, say, until we get back into the flow of, we've got the new project, let's continue hammering it home, at which point we'll probably move to every 2 weeks. That keeps us on a specific timeline, whereas withdrawing and waiting for a new application does not keep us on a specific timeline, and that was my thinking on that. Although, I never turned down money for the town
Well,
in the case of application fees.
I'm not sure the applicant. And the other thing is, of course, if we were to stop this public hearing, then there is a timeline for us to render a decision.
Unless he withdrew the application, that would be the
Yeah,
context
but
under which
that,
I would.
But doing that would, I think, entail a new fee, and so I think that just for the money.
Procedurally, it made more sense to continue it.
Gotcha.
So, any other questions on this? Steve, do you have anything you'd like to add, or
No.
are you happy with it? Okay, well, in that case, I would say that we will continue this meeting to July 28th at 6:40 PM. Oh, I'm so sorry, Margaret. I even had a note that you wanted to speak. Before we continue the hearing, Margaret, and anybody else who'd like to speak, please come forward.
Mr. Conley can stay here, because I have a question for him.
Of course.
Margaret Donovan, 41 Central Avenue.
Welcome.
Thank you. Mr. Conley, the scuttlebutt on the street is that you intend to withdraw and sell the parcel, is that correct?
No.
Thank you. In response to what I thought I heard, you agree on, is that you will continue the public hearing where the public will be allowed to come.
Absolutely.
I would have real concerns if you were to meet with Mr. Conley without public input.
There would always be public input. It's just whether it's procedurally under the hearing or whether it's as citizens speak. There's no procedure by which the planning board as a whole could meet with Mr. Connolly behind closed doors.
That's clearly my understanding of.
Yeah, absolutely.
And probably because we're in a public hearing, it is difficult to, I mean, we should keep the discussion in the public hearing.
Because Mr. Connolly brought it up, I thought it was best to check with all the members to make sure our understanding was clear on that. So
Okay.
we will, you're absolutely right, we will continue it as a public hearing for all meetings.
Thank you. With regard to the revised plans, you've talked, but nothing additional has been presented to you?
Nothing has yet been
Okay.
presented.
At the last public meeting where we spoke, I highly criticized the building that is being proposed. I referred to it as looking like a factory, if not a prison. And I still believe the same. My question to Mr. Conley is this. I understand from talking to the town planner that this was just a concept, but that is a really attractive building, unlike this building here. Could you please explain, Mr. Conley, why you went from that to the prison? You're off, could you pass this down? Because I think, I would like this to be shown on TV.
I mean, he probably should have his architect to address your...
Margaret, we had 4 meetings with the revitalization committee,
yeah.
and they were supportive of the design that we had,
Which one?
the one that
Which one?
the one that we filed with.
This one?
No,
The concept.
the one that's there. And since that time, with the input of the planning board, numerous public hearings, we're gonna change the exterior of the building.
Are you going to go back to something like this?
I'm not sure, the mansard is gonna be more, is gonna be pronounced like that is, I'm not sure of that exact positioning. We're gonna look at that building and see what we can do.
One of the things.
You like
to
that building?
consider
I
is-
do.
that's
I
good to know.
think this is a very attractive building.
It's good.
I believe that even 36 Central, you've heard me refer to it as a monstrosity. I have, in terms of size. But when you look across and you look at the lines of that building from my side of the street, it is a very attractive building. It has architectural features that draw the eye towards the building. So does that.
Well,
So,
this is good, because you helped us significantly design that building.
oh, thank you so much.
Input.
So, when will you be coming back before the board with a new design for the outside?
The next meeting is July 28th. And we'll see what stage we're at that time. I'm not sure if I'll have a complete rendering or not, I'm not sure.
Now, this was designed by a different architect.
Correct.
Are you still with the architect for the prison?
As of today, we are still with the architect for the building we applied with.
Do you suppose you could suggest that he might come up with something like this?
I think that's a good suggestion.
I won't ask you why Mr. McGrath is gone, but as long as you can come up with a plan that is really, with the peaked windows up there, the mansard
I
roof.
think Mr. McGrath went to work for
Salem.
Salem,
Salem.
the city of Salem.
He's the building commissioner for the city of Salem.
So,
I don't know, Margaret, you're starting to pit architect against architect. That's always a bad idea.
Put me on the spot.
all right, but you understand what I'm saying. And by the way, I do commend Mr. Conley for undertaking a project like this. All I want is something attractive.
Thank you very much, Margaret.
Well, leave Bill a copy of that, just so that we can check.
Gonna scan it in and you'll get it tomorrow.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else wish to speak on 131 Elliott? All right, in that case, and again, my apologies, Margaret. In that case, this is continued to July 28th at 6:40 PM. We'll see you then. All right, next on our agenda is the old business of 683, 685 Brush Hill Road subdivision. And you should have received in your packet the subdivision approval and the declaration of trust for Beechwood Estates Homeowners Association Trust, and declaration of easements, covenants, and restrictions. And you should also have received, hang on, oh, there was another bit. In this huge pile of paper. What's the other thing? Hang on. You sent over 2 documents. What was the second one?
One page and then the other,
No, not that. The, here it is. Oh, I've got 2 copies of it. That's why. Never mind. Okay, so, what do you guys have?
I haven't read this, I got it this afternoon.
Same here. I got to print it out when I got home from work. Anybody else get a chance to read it?
This is, this is going to take a little more than an hour.
Well,
Reading this, and the subdivision approval, I mean, assuming the homeowner association takes care of the various issues that were raised at the public hearing. And by the way, Bill, what is our timeline on this? When do we have to render the decision?
we've been given continuances to each one, so
So we've got a new continuance that's working for something? Are we on a continuance now?
Yes. Yes.
An open-ended continuance? I mean, I have no problem. I'll be able to come up with something by the next meeting,
Okay.
but this is, I'm numbering the pages just so I can say how long the document is. It's a 15-page, single-spaced document, which, it just takes a little more time than we...
I think reading it on television is a singularly bad idea.
But then I think, then you
Well, that they cut out earlier.
Exactly.
But then after you digest this covenant, then you intend to draft our approval.
Yes.
And that will be a significant thing. And then we need to get that in advance of a meeting.
Yeah.
Right,
We can
exactly.
review it prior
Right.
to taking action, so.
So you will have enough time to digest this, write, and send us the...
Right,
everything?
I
Okay.
will have enough time before the next meeting, but
Okay.
I don't have enough time
Right
right now.
now. Come on, I want to see draft.
Pressure.
voting.
I'm sorry, but I just don't.
Pressure.
All right, so
This is progress.
this is great. Thank you very much.
This is progress, and next meeting should be the meeting. And,
Well, that assumes that we get whatever
well, you'll
document.
get it, and we'll get a
review
copy
it,
to your lawyer, and we'll,
Probably best to work with his lawyer first before we see, before the meeting, so if there's any objections, they can be
yes,
taken care of
Yes,
before we
yes,
sign.
yes.
So,
yes.
and you're all right with July 14th then? We have your continuance? Okay, great.
And just,
Yes, of course.
Alex, if we have comments on this, should we forward some to you so you can take
Forward
them
to Bill, and he
Forward
will...
them to Bill, and then you can take them into account as you
Right,
draft your...
exactly.
Question?
Yeah.
Yeah?
There was a lot of activity around the doctor's house the last couple of days, craftsmen and trucks. The first house?
Yeah. No, I have no idea.
Yeah,
I know that he
a lot of activity.
had issues with his prior contractor and got rid of him, and I think he's got a new contractor on board.
Probably 10 or 15 people and about 3 or 4 trucks.
Yeah, I know the guy he got now is supposed to be a good contractor, so hopefully moving along now.
Anything else you'd like to add while you're
Planning
here?
board comments, can I have a copy of that, or?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
So Bill, when you get them, forward them on, okay. Anything else? All right, well, in that case, we'll see you on July 14th. Yep,
So you agree to the continuance until July 14th?
Yes.
I asked him that. He said yes.
I'm just getting him to say yes. He's nodding.
Let's-
Oh, you want the
Let's do
physical
it, let's
yes.
do it till the day afterwards, so we can file with the town clerk if necessary.
Not a bad idea. Continuance to July 15th. Yes?
Yes.
Excellent.
15th to
Thank you. 15th, so that we can sign it on the 14th and give it to the town clerk on the 15th. So, all right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anything else for this meeting? If nothing, I'll accept a motion.
Is there anything else we should discuss? Don't you want to discuss the master plan a little bit?
Well, I thought, we were waiting to discuss the East Milton parking study, which I believe has not yet been accepted by the Board of Selectmen, but my understanding is we're waiting
What
on
about new
that.
zoning proposals for the next special town meeting? They always like to have a zoning
They have
proposal.
limited the next special town meeting to 5 articles, and I have been told that it'd be very nice if none of them were zoning articles. However, I think, actually, that's a good reminder, I think we should be just starting to think about this for May. Yes?
It's too bad that Mr. Rosito left, but Mr. Rosito actually has a zoning change article that he would like to take and bring if we have a special town meeting in October.
What does it have to do with?
St. Elizabeth's parcel, and it would be
Cluster?
some type of cluster.
Okay.
Mr. Sullivan has a piece of property on the other side of town that's also on a state road, similar in size, and Mr. Sullivan's is a little smaller than Mr. Rosito's, but for the same purposes.
We know the state highway ends.
138 and 28.
No, I understand that, but the state highway ends at that, when you get to the intersection. I don't think in other words, as it turns the corner, the frontage on the,
The address of the St. Elizabeth's Rectory is 597 Randolph Ave.
okay, that's what it is, but the question is, of course,
The state...
if you're talking frontage on a state highway,
It would have to be.
the only frontage is Randolph Avenue, and
Right.
when you turn the corner, that frontage is not state highway frontage.
Side yard.
Right.
But it's side yard, right? It's side
Well,
yard,
but
because the frontage is on
but the
the...
question is, I mean, the question is, if you break it into little lots, then
Unless it's a
PD.
cluster development. at
Right.
which point-
unless it's a cluster type, but people, that'd be sort of a co-op. I mean, people sort of like their, well, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what he's suggesting. Does he,
Yeah.
have they developed something into a format?
Is it something he'd bring to us on the 14th, since he's coming in anyway? 'Cause I don't think we've got anything else for that.
I'm not sure how far along they are.
All right,
I will ask.
But
okay.
what they want to do is, of course, make it sort of like the institutional,
Yes. We're looking for an overlay that could be done.
commercial, institutional,
Townhouse.
commercial,
Is it, are they, but they're
It's
just
only
looking for
residential.
residential? Yeah.
It's only residential, it's townhouses that they're looking
Okay.
for.
Well, we've been talking about looking at our cluster bylaw for ages, so tell them we'd be interested in looking at what he has to propose.
Yeah.
And then we'll go from there. And for the rest of us, if July 14th's looking a little light, we'll see about July 28th. Start thinking about stuff that you'd like to bring forward to the Maytown meeting. Possibly the special, but as I said, they are planning to limit the articles, so start thinking ahead to the Maytown meeting if there's anything. I know the East Milton parking study had some possible zoning changes. We'll probably want to talk about that fairly soon. Might want to put that on the agenda for the 14th and see what there else is there. You want me to announce this? Or is it
Sure.
an announceable thing? Okay.
Sure. The East Milton parking study final report will be given to the selectmen Tuesday, the 28th, at 8
Okay.
o'clock.
Tuesday, the 28th. At 8 o'clock, you said?
At 8 o'clock.
Okay, and I believe we had some discussion before the meeting started about when the Governor Stoughton would be discussed again.
That will be discussed at Monday night, this coming Monday, the 27th,
Okay.
at 8 o'clock.
Okay, so they're meeting the 2 nights in a row. So Governor Stoughton, 27th,
They're meeting tonight at 8 o'clock.
right.
They're meeting next Monday at 8 o'clock, next Tuesday at 8 o'clock.
But Monday is Governor Stoughton.
Yes.
I'll see you, just a sec. And Tuesday is East Milton, just
Yes.
so people know. Okay, Ed?
Yes,
Both at the Council on Aging, Bill?
both at the Council on Aging.
Alex?
On, getting back to the St. Elizabeth's parcel, it seems to me that, the first thing to do is have them come in with what they'd like to do with elevations and say, before we, try and devise zoning to do something
Let's see what.
that we don't know what it is. I mean, if they want to do something, let's have them first come in with exactly what they want to do and show it to us with detail, not some grand, something that gets changed all the time, because, once again, we would zone the particular development.
That makes a lot of sense. First of all, it gives the public something to react to, which is nice, but it also means that if we're zoning for something that we know ahead of time, we don't have to go back to town meeting 3 times to tweak it to match the project as it develops. So I think that's a very good idea. Yeah. All right, I have been told, or we've all been passed around, the ribbon cutting ceremony and grand opening for the residences at Brook Hill, 36 Central Avenue, Tuesday, June 28th at 10:30 a.m. So, ribbon cutting ceremony, very exciting. Anything else for this meeting?
Is Mr. Donovan going to cut the ribbon?
gonna say that, they held back.
We can't tell her about it.
Personal invitation.
I'm sure she did too. Anything else? Zoning, conferences, questions, answers? All right, then I'll accept the motion.
I make that motion.
I'll second it.
All those in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
All right, thank you all, gentlemen.